Good evening, East Coast. Good afternoon, West Coast. And good night, Alabama Crimson Tide. Holy crap. Nia Jax couldn't have delivered a knockout punch that hard to Nick Saban if she wanted to. You know, there are just undoubtedly some people in this world that deserve a good ass kicking, you know? Any of you got a wrestler in mind? Maybe a couple, maybe three? Yeah, me too. But fortunately for all of you, this week's episode does not feature Big Cass. Instead, what was advertised was a star-studded event with the returns of Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman, John Cena, and of course Hulk Hogan. But is that what we got? And the obvious answer would be yes. I mean, all of those guys were in fact on the show as advertised, but did they bring with them that star power that Monday Night Raw has been lacking as of late? We're going to talk about that, and we can all decide together whether the show delivered on that promise. But first, the show opens up with Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley just beating the hell out of each other for God knows what reason. And they eventually spilled out onto the entrance ramp of the Amway Center in Orlando. You know, I'm assuming Lashley cut in line in catering, and Seth Rollins called him out on it. Or maybe, you know, Rollins told Lashley that his head was too small for his body, which would obviously lead to a brawl, right? I mean, those are fighting words where I come from. Anyway, regardless of how the fight started, we all know why it started. And that was to open the door for a Lashley interference in the main event of the show. We'll get to that, I promise, but first let's go over a couple more important notes from the show first. The first dose of star power comes to the ring in the form of John Cena. You may have heard of him. He cuts a promo on how he plans to get to the WrestleMania card this year. He declares himself for the Royal Rumble in 3 weeks and says he plans on winning it. Just like everybody does when they declare themselves for the Rumble. But Drew McIntyre interrupts and cuts a little promo of his own. Now, while it was a good promo, I think this moment had the potential to be a turning point for Drew McIntyre. Okay, obviously the WWE would never allow for any single man on that roster to come out and just completely destroy John Cena live on Raw. It's not going to happen. And that, my friends, is a very important issue that I have with the way they build their superstars. Okay, ask yourself this. When you hear the word superstar, not star, not any of that, I mean actual superstar, how many can you count? And be honest with yourself, too. Okay, because I can count them on one hand and then still have enough fingers left to tell Big Cass exactly what I think of them. Okay, so here's my point. You want superstars, actual bona fide superstars, do the little things that need to be done to get your guys to the next level. John Cena has so much to offer this company as his in-ring career winds down that they're not using. With John Cena comes this incredible opportunity to give somebody like Drew McIntyre, who I've gone on record as saying is the future of the company. He's got the opportunity to give him a rub that would shoot him to the top of the card overnight. Okay, if you don't know what I mean by rub, I'm referring to the amount of attention or the amount of positive momentum that somebody gains from going over an already established talent. Okay, that's basically the definition of a rub in wrestling terms. So, back to this missed opportunity. Send Drew McIntyre out there to destroy the face of the company, use chairs, a table, kendo sticks, it doesn't matter, just get the job done. You can always balance out the ass kicking of John Cena down the road by booking him strong and building him back up. But regardless, this does very little damage to John Cena at all while launching McIntyre to the moon. That's something we'll have to talk about with Jay on Saturday, get his opinion on it. I'm going to stop the fantasy booking until I have Jay with me on Saturday. He's the master at fantasy booking. But this face-to-face ended up in a six-man tag match with John Cena, Finn Balor, and Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre. The match itself was a B. However, I just want to say that Seth Rollins during this one gets an A+. He looked like he was on another level the entire match. And other than that, I'd say it was nothing more than mediocre. Finn Balor, for the record, did get probably the biggest reaction during the match. For those of you who care, I just thought that was an interesting point to make. Not really surprising, but interesting nonetheless. Rollins got the pin on Dean Ambrose to end it, and that's how the main event of the night was set up for later in the show, which, like I said before, we'll get to that in due time. But not before we talk about the second dose of star power that was brought out. His name is Hulk Hogan. Perhaps you've heard of him. Yeah, well, I thought the tribute to Mean Gene was good. I thought Hogan did an excellent job of focusing the attention off of himself and onto the life and memories of Mean Gene. He seemed a little emotional at times, and I enjoyed the video package that was made to honor the great Gene Okerlund. There's more to this story that I want to talk about, and it has to do with the timing of Hogan's return and some of my thoughts on whether it was the right call for WWE to make at a time when, you know, the wrestling world is still kind of mourning one of its legends passing. That's a discussion best saved for this weekend, as I'm sure Jay's going to have an opinion on it, and I prefer a little back and forth on stuff like that. You know, I like more than just one opinion all the time. So let's see. Okay, how about this for an opinion? The next match was a lumberjack match for the tag titles. It was between Bobby Roode and Chad Gable and the Revival. In my humble opinion, Chad Gable really stuck out as the one bright spot in this match. Now, of course, the other three guys are extremely talented, and I don't like to take away from them by any means, but Gable really seemed like he was on a bit of a higher level than the rest of them during this one. So, yeah, in a match that was decent at best, I'd say Gable was exceptional. And the Glorious Ones retained, by the way. Elias versus Baron Corbin. Corbin won this match in what was really just a throwaway. Nothing memorable about this one, although both Elias and Corbin did announce they will be in the Royal Rumble match in Phoenix, so there's a couple more participants for you. Now for the third and fourth dose of star power. This next segment was a back and forth promo between Braun Strowman, who was in the ring, and Paul Heyman, who was backstage with Brock Lesnar. Lesnar ended up making his way out to the ring, circled it one time, and then went straight back up the ramp. It is incredible to me how much money this guy is making for doing absolutely nothing. For God's sakes, the guy doesn't even have to talk into a microphone. Must be nice, right? I mean, I don't think advertising Lesnar for Raw has any impact in the ratings anymore, so this was done as just a little hype for their match at the Rumble. Speaking of the Rumble, we got us a little number one contender match between Nia Jax and Sasha Banks that would decide the opponent for Ronda Rousey in a few weeks. The winner of this match was Sasha Banks, and let me tell you, this match was absolutely brutal to watch. I mean, if you have not watched this match, go ahead, put your TV on, watch the match, but do the Bird Box Challenge while you're doing it. Because this is one you're not going to want to see, I promise you. If you haven't watched it, I'm jealous that you haven't wasted that 10 minutes of your life that I am never going to get back. It was just missed spots galore, very sloppy wrestling, just bad. Okay, so here comes the main event to make up for all that garbage, right? Well, not quite. Now, I'm more convinced each week that Dean Ambrose is incapable of putting on a main event caliber match. This one wasn't horrible by any means, okay, especially following the train wreck that Sasha Banks and Nia Jax put on, but it wasn't main event worthy either, by any means. They used the crowd, they used some foreign objects, but ultimately it was Bobby Lashley that ended up coming out and costing Seth Rollins the match. I'm sure nobody saw this one coming, right? Wait. Maybe that was the point of opening the show with a random brawl between the two. Maybe that was it. The foreshadowing here is just genius. God, well, there you have it. That was Monday Night Raw in a nutshell, as spoken by Ben Conrad. Tune in tomorrow, please, for your 5th dose of star power as Jay Gunner gives his take on SmackDown. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. It's always a fantastic show. You can find every episode of both mine and Jay's reviews at throwthex.com, of course, as well as our flagship weekend show, Throw the Podcast. We're also found on Podbean, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher. You get the point. We're everywhere. There is absolutely no hiding from Throw the X. And follow us on Twitter at TTX Wrestling. Tweet at me. Thank you. See y'all on Saturday.